It's high noon in the Old West, and you know what that means? It means it's time to head back to the farm. Knott's Berry Farm, that is. Started in the early 1920s as an actual working berry farm by Walter and Cordelia Knott and their small children. This farm sprouted the first ever commercial crop of boysenberries, a chicken dinner restaurant, eventually a ghost town, and over the next 100 years, a full-fledged theme park. It's still here, open to the public 100 years later, and is one of my favorite places on earth. It's been a hot minute since I've been down to Knott's Berry Farm. You know, what with Allie's surgery and everything going on, but I'm glad to be back. I just finally re-sorted out my annual pass the other day, and I'm looking forward to a whole new season of Knott's Berry Farm. Nothing like a good time on the farm, am I right, ma'am? You can say that again. Wait a minute, hark! What's that sound? That is the sound of an authentic, actual 19th century steam engine rolling into the station. Old 340's about to come hissing in for a stop. Oh yeah, look at that. The Ghost Town and Calico Railway. This year in 2022, we're marking a big anniversary for the steam trains here at Knott's Berry Farm. They got here in 1952, which makes this the 70th anniversary of the Ghost Town and Calico Railroad. That is a lot of history, a history I'm actually a part of now. Because just a few years ago, I actually got to drive one of these steam trains, along with my friend Travis and Brett Iwan, the voice of Mickey Mouse. If I recall correctly, both of these steam engines here at Knott's Berry Farm were built for the Denver and Rio Grande in the 1880s by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. This one, number 340, now known as Green River, was first named the Gold Nugget when it came to Knott's Berry Farm. And its companion, which I think has been undergoing maintenance in recent months, is number 41, now known as the Walter K, but back in the day it was named the Red Cliff, which, by the way, is the train that I drove around this park once upon a time and had, for my money, one of the coolest paint jobs of the old Knott's Berry Farm trains. Anyway, it's incredible. A lot has changed at Knott's Berry Farm, even in the last 10 years, never mind the last 100. But it's nice to see the actual, authentic, antique steam locomotives are still circling the park just like they have for the last 70 years. And to think it all started with boysenberries. Speaking of boysenberries, all around us in the background as we've been walking around, you may have noticed these green lean-to structures everywhere, which are loosely modeled, by the way, on the Knott family's original berry stand that was here on the farm. These just started popping up here overnight, along with some rather colorful flora and fauna, because Knott's Berry Farm is just a few days away from beginning its annual Boysenberry Festival, a celebration of the berry that made Walter Knott's farming career a success, paved the way for him to build his very own ghost town, and as they prove year after year, makes one heck of a tasty ingredient in all kinds of boysenberry festival dishes. Right, guys?
How's that boysenberry tasting pipe tobacco? Is a good ingredient in that?
I mean, I guess they could put it into back.
Yeah, how about my moonshine? How's a boysenberry make that taste, Sonny?
Actually, I do think they make a boysenberry beer, maybe some boysenberry wine.
Hey, who invited you to sit with us anyway?
Oh, nobody. Sorry. Yes, sir. Look at all these berries and look at all the flowers. You know, spring is coming when the Boysenberry Festival starts. All the old mine carts are filling with flowers. And look at this. Even the graves are in bloom.
That's old Deadwood Dick's grave. Yeah, don't know why they called him that. He was a nice fella. Plus, he wasn't made of wood.
What's wrong with those guys? Dude, I am so happy that in recent years, actually during the lockdowns, they decided to restore some of the characters to the Pekins here in Ghost Town. Like these guys here in the assay office. The recordings may have changed, but it's amazing to see the same scenes you would have seen in the 1940s in Ghost Town, including next door here at Hop Wing Lee's Laundry. A very important nod to the Chinese contribution to the history of the Old West. I'm actually very pleased and surprised you can see Wing Lee's face again. Nice. Or my favorite, the fantastic and comical tableau inside the old barber shop.
Wonder why this here customer looks so familiar. Probably no reason. I look like Mark Twain. Good thing I got my pistol.
I just love that Knott's Berry Farm is not just a tribute to history, but also now has so much history of its own, being 100 years old. Oh, a history that starts with back-breaking farm labor and ends up with us having a whole bunch of fun, especially when you're a crackerjack shooting ace like me. That never happens to me, I swear. Anyway, speaking of history, you may recall that this was once the Silver Dollar Saloon and served boysenberry punch. If you missed it, I may have actually talked about that in my Knott's Berry Farm 100th anniversary documentary. Check that out, because if you like Knott's Berry Farm or theme park history or just history in general, there's a lot there. I'm trying to keep an eye on this newfangled blacksmith they got out here. Can never be too trusting of people who are into metallurgy. It ain't natural, that's all. Oh, I love seeing this. One of the world's longest poker games is now back in action. Just something about Ghost Town that I love so much. I could just wander around here and peek into all the little windows and drink sarsaparilla and boysenberry punch all day, and I feel like I'd be perfectly content. Although I feel like if you went to ask my friend Sad-Eyed Joe back in the town jail, he'd probably tell you hanging out here all day is no picnic.
Hey, hello there.
Hey Joe, what do you think? You think it's fun to hang around here all day?
Oh, first of all, I don't like that word hang around anywhere. I don't want to hang for sure.
I love that so much of classic Knott's Berry Farm has been preserved over the years. Like the knife and gun shop back here, which is actually a preserved local farmhouse where Walter and Cordelia Knott attended their first party in the neighborhood. You can actually find a little framed information about the old farmhouse just inside the door, including the fact that at one time it housed the candle shop. But this particular business in here, this particular vendor has been in the park for 61 years. The McCoy family started selling knives and guns in Knott's Berry Farm in 1961, and they've been doing it ever since. Of course, in the late 1960s, they swapped out selling real guns for selling replicas. Like these here rubber band slingers, for example. Along with the more realistic ones. But you can still buy very real, very sharp knives in the knife and gun shop, along with some other stuff you don't typically see in theme park souvenir shops, including lighters, pipe tobacco, etc., and what have you. It's a real throwback to the old days, and while you're looking around, don't forget to look up, because there are 61 years of history decorating this place, and it's worth taking your time to take a look. Incidentally, the son of the original owner, Bob McCoy Jr., is still running this shop today.
So if you're needing a knife, come on and stop by the farm.
One of the best buildings back here that very few people actually look into for some reason. Unless, of course, they know the secret is the old Boot Hill Undertaker's office, which features a very old school and still very effective special effect called a Pepper's Ghost. Look at that. Very similar to the way most of the ghosts in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland work. Just goes to show you that sometimes the old ways are still the good ways. And speaking of old ways, it doesn't get much more Old West than the Birdcage Theater. This replica of Tombstone, Arizona's most famous house of evening entertainment, well, or at least the facade of this replica here, was built in 1954 out of farm-made adobe, which theme park historian Ken Stack told me was tested and is actually about half concrete. Probably how they got away with building structures on the farm out of adobe. Behind this surprisingly accurate looking facade over here is a theater, which was originally just a tent and is nowadays a little better. It's more like an outdoor barn though than a proper theater, meaning it's still very outdoors, not quite a fully enclosed building, if you will. But apparently you don't need insulation to have 68 amazing years of performances in this theater, featuring actors who would later go on to perform in films or on television. The most famous and well-known of which, of course, is probably Steve Martin. Now, the Birdcage Theater has sat here for a long time looking out at Ghost Town. But it looks like after all this time, the view is about to make its most dramatic change ever. And for once, the changes to the view won't be this way looking out the doors, it'll be this way looking at the theater. Knott's Berry Farm has recently announced their plans to add a brand new Giga Coaster to the park in the parking lot that's just south of the Birdcage Theater. Now, most people don't know this, but just to the left of the Birdcage Theater, this big gate over here was once a main entrance into Ghost Town from the southern parking lot before there was a fence and before you had to pay to enter Knott's Berry Farm. So there's still a maintenance access road back there, a road that goes straight out to the parking lot, which means that if they take out the Birdcage Theater right here, they can make enough space for the queue area of their new Giga Coaster ride. Now, from what I've heard, the plan would be to relocate the facade of the Birdcage Theater, and I believe that that's what they probably intend to do, but it's made out of adobe bricks made on the farm 60, 70 years ago. It's hard to imagine they could actually move this existing facade here. Then again, I'm not an architect, I'm not a construction guy, so what the heck do I know. If they can't move it, I hope they find some way to incorporate at least these front doors here into the new queue area, into the new ride. We'll see what happens. These types of grand, big money construction plans have a way of rapidly and crazily evolving, so you never know what the final result will be. Apparently Giga Coasters are a big deal. People are starting to murmur about it. They're getting very excited. I'm not sure I even really understand what a Giga Coaster is. I think I'd better go back to school and do some more learning. What? Nah, I'm just kidding. I couldn't understand a word they were saying in there, so I dropped out again. Oh, you know what? Speaking of my buddy Ken Stack, the theme park historian and author, I was just out here in Ghost Town at the end of Main Street with him the other day, and we were talking about which facades still look like they might be original or have a little bit of original wood left in them. Because as you may know, many of them were getting dry rotted at the turn of the century here and had to be replaced. And when we came to the end of the street here to the post office and turned the corner, I made the observation to him that wood-wise, this building here on the end looks pretty original to me. We started looking at these boards here, which have certainly been replaced since the 1940s, at least in part. But the real giveaway was the amount of paint on the windows. Look at all those layers. Not to mention decades of antiquated wiring, like I said, paint layers, staples, nail holes. And then both of us, looking at the building, started scratching our heads, and for the life of us could not remember what in the heck this building, this storefront, used to be back in the farm's heyday. And let me tell you, I'm easy to stump, at least temporarily. It's hard to stump Stack, even temporarily. Now remember, back in the heyday of Knott's Berry Farm, and particularly before they fenced it in and charged admission just to walk around the farm, each one of these little storefronts contained something, if not a peek in or a little historical vignette like the post office here, then they would have a usually historically related business like candle making or the knife and gun shop or the working blacksmith shop, the working print shop, the dress shop, along with gems, geodes, photography, portrait painting, you know, and millions of little ceramic trinkets of every kind, shape, and description. Yes, sir, when old Walter Knott was here, every door led somewhere. So that night, Ken went home to his massive collection of old Knott's Berry Farm pictures and posted on Stack's Liberty Ranch Facebook page the answer to the mystery. This very original looking building behind me was once the home of Knott's Berry Farm's rug and wool shop. Now you'll notice that the roof line has changed considerably on this building, and there's no longer a window in this side wall over here. We're currently going back and forth having a debate on whether or not the wall of the general store has moved. You know, whether this wall here expanded outwards as the general store has expanded and consumed other little shops over the years. Still not sure about that. Some of the people that work in the general store told me, oh no, for sure they remodeled it. This brickwork looks very similar to that picture that we saw, you know, so who knows? It's possible that wall really hasn't changed too much. Hard to tell. But what we can say for sure is that this front part of the building looks identical to the way it did back in the day. The front door itself has been replaced, which is pretty obvious. I mean, that's a totally different looking door than the door in the picture. But if you look at that piece over the door, and more importantly, the piece over the window, you can see that they were present back in the day in that old Ken Stack's Liberty Ranch photo. Looking closely at the piece over the door, I can actually see where the old sign used to be mounted on it. And you can see a few nails left under decades of paint layers. I've been working with a lot of wood lately, including creating replicas of old aged signs and paint layers. And I'll tell you what, there are some things that are hard to fake, and this would be pretty darn hard to fake. So next time you hit the end of Main Street, you're making your way over to the Calico Saloon, stop halfway and admire what used to be the old rug and wool shop out here. By the way, although the door may be closed and locked to us out here, there is still a way into the rug and wool shop from inside the general store back here. You can see these doorways lead into what is now a stock room, which is just the old rug and wool shop footprint repurposed. Speaking of my friend, historian and author Ken Stack, if you go to stackslibertyranch.com, you can find his books about rare theme park history, including a volume about very rare Knott's Berry Farm history. It's all self-published, produced in very limited numbers with very rare information, very thick, full color. So kind of pricey, but I think worth it. Well, look at this. We've now swiveled over onto Market Street, and there's something fantastic over here. The Gunsmith is open. Very few people ever notice it, but this building right here in between the Calico Saloon and the leather shop is the Gunsmith. It was modeled after an old building in Angels Camp, California, if I recall correctly. So it's based on an actual Gold Rush era building, which is why it has such thick walls. If you're a gunsmith, you're messing around with gunpowder and such, like, you're gonna wanna lock it up in a nice thick building. Actually, all joking aside, you see a lot of thick walls like this in old Western towns, whether made out of rammed earth or brick, or sometimes even concrete or adobe, because it was helpful to fireproof the buildings. That's why the big old iron doors. Most old West towns that survived for any length of time would burn down at least once or twice before everything started getting made out of brick and thickening up. It also wasn't a bad idea to fortify your building against banditos or, you know, hostile local residents or stray cows, grizzly bears, I don't know, whatever you got. Anyway, look at this. There's the old Gunsmith. Back there's a bunch of tools that show you how they made the old gun stocks. Unfortunately, because of this old metal wire here, it's one of the hardest places to take a decent picture or get on film in Knott's Berry Farm's ghost town, but it's a lot better than plexiglass when you're actually looking through it in person, I'll tell you that much. What have we here? Look at this machine. Oh, wait, never mind. I thought that was something exciting. Turns out it's boring. Before the days of roller coasters, Knott's Berry Farm was very dedicated to historical presentations like this, you know, to show you how it was back in the day. Wait a minute, is that a parking meter? Weird. And anyway, there are still actually a lot of employees here, a lot of farmers as I call them today, who are very into history and very into teaching kids, especially about the Old West, particularly in the Old Western Trails Museum. If you step inside of this building, you'll get a whole ear full of Old West history. You'll also find a lot of old-fashioned music playing and music making devices in here, which were once part of Walter and Cordelia Knott's very extensive music box and music making machine collection that actually had their own building here at Knott's Berry Farm, and I'll show you that next. Down on Market Street again, past the old handmade adobe ruins here, which, yes, were also created right here on the farm. You will find Knott's Berry Farm's old original bottle house, completed in 1945 and constructed of more than 3,000 actual glass bottles, mostly champagne bottles, by the way. This beloved Paul von Kleben designed building is one of Knott's Berry Farm's most iconic structures, and you can actually see Paul von Kleben's original concept art in the book Knott's Preserved by another fantastic theme park historian, Chris Merritt. As hard as it is to believe, bottle houses were an actual part of Old West history. Lumber was not always readily available in the Old West, particularly in the desert communities. But there was one thing the Old West had plenty of, and that was saloons. Saloons that would go through thousands of glass bottles as quick as you could say lackadaisical. The first documented bottle house was constructed in Tonopah, Nevada in 1902 by a fella named William F. Peck out of more than 10,000 beer bottles. Sadly, that one was torn to the ground in the 1980s, so we can't visit it today, but there is another surviving Old West bottle house in Rhyolite, Nevada, which we have actually visited before and which provided the direct inspiration for Walter Knott's version here at Knott's Berry Farm. Now, like I said, the bottle house is very popular. A lot of people know it's here, take pictures of it, and come inside to check out the plentiful assortment of Native American souvenirs in here, which they've been selling in here since at least the late 60s. I know at some point before that they actually had the glass blowing in this building, which seems very fitting considering how much glass we're surrounded by. But check out these pictures Ken Stack sent me from at least 50 years ago inside the bottle house. Look at those old bottle shelves right there, and of course the Native American souvenirs. One of the photos taken from pretty much this very spot of this exact window, and you can tell that by looking at the bottles right here against the wall. Those same bottles are still there, including this half-broken bottle right here. How awesome is that? Anyway, back in that picture, you can see that big drum. It was just pointed out to me that that very drum is still here in the bottle house. That is incredible. Now, these days, the Bottle House still plays host to some Native American gifts and souvenirs, but it's largely been taken over by LGH Ceramics, a family-owned company who, just like the old school Knott's vendors of the past, are offering something very unique to park guests in the form of customizable, hand-paintable ceramics sculpted and cast right here in the USA by the family that's running this place. And unlike the paint-your-own ceramics chain stores, a lot of these designs are one-of-a-kind, unique things that you will never find anywhere else. Look what they created for the Boysenberry Festival. Little ceramic boysenberry pies, which of course come from a mold, but you see on the top here, these leaves and berries, those all have to be individually handmade. Just don't get this kind of craftsmanship at a chain store. Look at these Christmas trees down here. These old school Christmas trees are created from old school molds, but each light bulb has to be individually placed in there. And look at this. Have you ever seen one with a nativity scene in it before? I haven't. They even have surprise bags. You can come and buy one, and you can even leave it behind the counter until you're ready to go so you don't accidentally drop your ceramics. Anyway, like I said, it's just like the old school mom and pop vendors at Knott's Berry Farm that you remember from your childhood. And it's basically Knott's Berry Farm's best kept secret, because for some reason, there's no sign outside letting you know that there are ceramic treasures within. Anyway, I'm letting all the ceramics get to my head and distract me. The reason I walked you over here was to point out that even though people are very familiar with the Bottle House, they don't often realize that it's actually 3 buildings in one. Because although they're now all connected inside and you can enter into the Bottle House and then walk right back to the ceramics, back in the day, the 3 facades here were very much separate structures, each with their own theme, and that middle one there where all those people are walking out was once the old Knott's Berry Farm Music Hall. And beyond that, although totally forgotten today, this little adobe, almost Pueblo-style building on the end was once the old Butterfield Stage Line office. This is one of the coolest Von Cleben design buildings in the park. There's the Bottle House on the one end and then the Butterfield Stagecoach office on the other side, which I've always thought is particularly picturesque, with the cactuses up on the roof and a little hidden architectural detail that's now kind of swamped by the Sutter's seating area. But if you come back here and look, you will see some very old-fashioned, antique, curved glass windows. These absolutely blow me away. You'd be very hard-pressed to find curved glass windows like this at Home Depot or something like that. I have no idea where the Knotts got them for their music hall. But considering that many of the structures here recycled building materials from actual old buildings in the neighborhood being torn down, there's almost no way to know. Anyways, like I said, at one point, these 3 were separate themed buildings. There was the Butterfield Stage office, then of course the old Western Bottle House, and in the middle here, this was the music hall, where Walter Knott and his family once upon a time kept their very extensive collection of phonographs and old Calliopes and music boxes and whirly gigs and whatever else you call them, some of which I showed you over in the old Western Trails Museum, and one of which, an old wooden phonograph I actually owned for a little while, but I gave it to my artist friend Jim Campbell because he's a big old phonograph fan and he is currently restoring it. Nowadays, the only music regularly playing in here is the little preview screen playing the Native American music in the Bottle House. But if you ask the wonderful Martinez family who runs the ceramics business nice enough, you just might hear the sweet, beautiful music of an Aztec death whistle. This is the real deal, folks. Okay, give me a blow. 1. There we go. Don't blow it. Get it? Here we go. I did not edit that. That is what that whistle actually sounds like. So come in and request it. One will love that. Look what I've done already. Now he's got to keep blowing the whistle all day. Anyway, if you're into ceramics, you pick, you paint, or hearing the beautiful music of Aztec death whistles, or you just want to check out the old music hall, come stop by this family-owned and operated gem. And maybe you, like me, can paint your own A-Team van. Oh, a couple more things before I leave the bottle house. I was gonna point this out on the floor. A lot of visitors might have noticed the year 1875 AD right there. Like I told you, the first documented bottle house ever was 1902. They built this place in 1945. So what the heck is up with that? Well, the Martinez family figured it out. 1875 apparently has something to do with the Sons of the Golden West, of which Walter Knott was a member. Ah, another quick little tidbit. You might have noticed back in that old picture how there was a brick wall next to this window I showed you the before and after of. That's because he had to be knocked out to open up the music hall and the bottle house into one big shop. So that's interesting, but this last thing I think is very interesting, going all the way back to the 40s and 50s when people who lived in the neighborhood could just walk in with no fence. There was no admission fee to Knott's Berry Farm. Apparently it was a tradition for local lovers to come in here and roll up little notes about their romance and put them into the bottles. So it is extremely hard to see or show you, but deep inside of many of these bottles are either the dusty, decaying remnants where they've sort of fallen apart, or sometimes perfectly preserved little rolled up notes from the lovers of the past. And actually, one of the last dates they were ever on before my grandpa proposed to my grandma was right here at Knott's Berry Farm. Maybe my Nana left a love note in here. Juan's gonna try and get one out. I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but he works here, so it's probably fine. Just doing a little archaeology, no big deal. Oh, the stick broke. All right, we got a better tool here. Give it a try. We'll give it a try. No way you got one.
I think you got
$1. Well, it's not a love note, but you know what?
Hey.
We can use every dollar we can get right now.
I can buy gum today.
You seen gas prices? Woo! We can use that. What is this? What is this? Whoa, whoa! We got somebody's business card.
Somebody's business card.
From I don't know what
custom
kind of, custom airbrushing. Oh, that's okay. Ooh, the legs had me worried there.
I know for a second.
All right, we're gonna try one more here. One more chance for the rich stuff. It's gonna be a treasure map, and then you and me are gonna go on a quest together. We're gonna find One-Eyed Willie. Oh no way!
Oh, this is a blank one.
No, it's blank.
Unless it's invisible ink.
Or because so much sun goes in there, maybe it faded off.
Maybe. I mean, if that was one of the originals here, way back in the day, that could have happened.
Ah. Or maybe it was just someone's receipt.
Okay. But see, the only thing is with the entrance here, a lot of people do put like trash.
Oh, what's that? Old Knott's ticket.
One? Oh, look at this.
Whoa.
2001.
2001.
So this has been here since what, 20?
Yeah, 21 years.
Wow.
Okay, so that's old.
That's old.
That's pretty old. No love notes.
No love notes.
From anyone's
it's
grandma,
funny, 'cause there's still stuff in there.
You know.
The same one.
Well, one day Juan will take out all the treasures and put them on display in here.
Yeah, actually, I have somebody who's gonna probably, what do you call it? Go through everyone and kind of, see what's in them. Of course, we're gonna put it.
That'll
in the
be
back.
awesome, like an archaeological dig.
Yes. We were just talking about that.
Once again, this is a reminder that Juan works in here, so don't any of you come sticking sticks into the bottles.
Yes,
that would
please
be
don't.
highly frowned upon. All right, since we have to put everything back in the bottles, we decided to make this note unblank now. That's the reason I'm being allowed special permission to put it back in, because that's where it came from. Ah, Knott's Berry Farm's hidden treasure, the bottle house, and Juan and Isabel Martinez. Whoa, look at this. It's already sundown on the old dusty trail. A cold wind is starting to blow, folks. Time for me to be heading back to my homestead. Do me a favor and check out store.randomland.com. That's our store. And check out the links in the description. There's a bunch of them. I have an Instagram. Come on now. Seriously, please, do me that favor just this one time, okay? You know why? Because then you'll have done your duty and you can go home and sleep well. we can't unless you might gotta. Just remember, if you don't know a blacksmith's name, you can always call them Mr. Smithers. For those of you wondering why I know Happy Dance, it's because the Old West has its own separate Happy Dance, which I haven't fully worked out yet, but which I will show you next time we're at Knott's Berry Farm, if I remember. Also, if you check out the links below. Look at this, I think these are trainees. I think these are people getting a tour. They're gonna become the next crop of farmers. By the way, Knott's Berry Farm employees are called associates, which I detest. I detest that. They should be called farmers. Farmers, which means they're the FFA, the future farmers.
Fairly well, from the old West.
Oh yeah, they have these now.
I'm so hungry, but all they have here is peanuts. Get it?
How about just out here in Ghost Town?
Oh,
got a
Guys, they don't allow filming at this park. I'm sorry, Knott's does not allow any video. Okay, this is ridiculous. This happens every...
Forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh my goodness.
Well, there's worse places to stay around for. What is it now? 100 years? No, let's see, 80 years.
Yeah, the last couple told me it's been about 82 years.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of lost track. I don't know what year it was, but...
Guess there's worse places you could have been.
Think so?
Yeah, well, it could be in Detroit.
Oh, Detroit? Is that bad, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what I hear.
I've never been there, so...
Oh, well, count yourself lucky. All right, see you, Sad I Do.
All righty.
Cheer up soon.
Thanks for visiting me.